It is going to be 9 o'clock on the East Coast. And when that happens in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, the polls will have closed as they have right now across the entire state of Michigan. At this time, NBC News projects that Donald Trump will win the Michigan Republican primary. That is our election projection. Donald Trump, the projected winner of the Michigan primary. NBC News can also now project that President Joe Biden will win the Michigan Democratic primary. Again, Joe Biden, projected winner of the Michigan Democratic primary. Let's head over to Steve Kornacki, who is where he always is, his post at the big board. Steve, what are the latest numbers here?
Yeah, well, you can see if you've been following for the last hour, the story has been really the difference between the polls being open and closed in Michigan is Gogebic, Iron, Dickinson, Menominee together a combined 0.5% of the statewide vote. So everything else has been closed for an hour. But now that the Wisconsin border counties are closed, we can make that projection. But it's been evident to you if you've been watching it for the last hour what's been happening here. And one of the things is as more and more vote has been coming in, it was initially very concentrated right here in southeastern Michigan, but more votes from the rural areas up north are starting to come in. Some of the UP is starting to come in, and that Haley number has continued to tick down and down ever so slightly. Now she's just over 30% at 31%. Now Trump a better than 2-to-1 lead over Nikki Haley. And we mentioned, if you were watching just a few minutes ago, in southeastern Michigan, the two counties where Haley we think is going to do best tonight, and where if she wanted to have a strong showing statewide, it really needed to show, was one, the major suburban county of Oakland County. More than half the vote is in there. She's barely above 30%. This is a county, frankly, for Haley to be making a statement in Michigan, she would need to be winning. And what should be her best county in the state, quite possibly, would be Washtenaw County, University of Michigan, Eastern Michigan University. And even there, now 70% of the vote is in, and she's losing by almost 12 points to Donald Trump. So everywhere else around there, and certainly in the rest of the state, gets worse and worse for Haley. And it raises the question of whether she's even going to be able to finish, I think, above that 30% number. Remembering, she got 43 in New Hampshire. She got 40 in South Carolina. What could still buttress Haley's support would be, we've mentioned this corner of western Michigan, around Kent County where Grand Rapids is, around Ottawa County. This is where Holland, Michigan is. And you see we have a little bit of vote in. It's almost nothing, but I can show you from Ottawa County, we do have about 1% in, and that initial 1%, if it's a harbinger of anything, would be terrible for Haley, because this should be, outside of those two counties I just showed you, her best area in the state. There's a 5-county region here that's about 17% of the statewide Republican primary vote total. And this 5-county region, Donald Trump didn't win a single one of them in the 2016 Republican primary in Michigan. In fact, in 2 of them, including the one we've just highlighted here, he finished in 3rd place in 2016. This is as he was winning the state by a double-digit margin. So, again, if Haley wants to get that statewide number up, or wants to at least stabilize it where it is, I think this area is really going to have to come in for her. One other sort of big outstanding slice of vote in southeastern Michigan, we're still waiting on Livingston County, nothing there. But again, especially once you get north here, basically we could say Saginaw, it's a bit arbitrary, but once you get north of there, it's basically Trump country. In small rural counties with large populations of non-college white voters, the core Trump base, you can just see what's happening here as they start to report in. You're going to see margins like that. Cumulatively, they're going to add up, and they're going to buttress that Trump number statewide. Now, taking a look here at the Democratic side, overall now 10% of the vote, and uncommitted over, for at least for the moment, that 15% mark. 15% statewide, 15% in congressional districts in Michigan is the threshold on the Democratic side to begin collecting delegates to the Democratic National Convention. Now, with a margin like this, Biden is going to take the lion's share of the delegates here. But the possibility that uncommitted gets delegates is certainly alive in the early returns here. But basically, the uncommitted story on the Democratic side that we're following for the rest of the night is going to be concentrated in a few places. The first is right here in Wayne County. This is the biggest of the big. This is Detroit here, but it's also home of Dearborn. And you had the mayor on from Dearborn a few minutes ago. Dearborn with a majority Arab American population. So we have obviously 85 votes only from Wayne tonight. There's going to be far, far more coming in. But that's going to tell a big part of the story here of whether uncommitted is registering. With that large Arab American and Muslim American population, is uncommitted racking up big numbers when substantial votes start to come in? And then the other type of vote, the other demographic that uncommitted might be drawing support from, we said, college counties, college students, maybe college faculty for that matter. We've certainly gotten indications on college campuses of a lot of dissent towards Joe Biden's Israel-Hamas policy. So Washtenaw County, University of Michigan at Ann Arbor, Eastern Michigan University, About 40% is in right now, and that uncommitted number continues to hover just below a quarter of the vote right there. The other major places to watch then for this uncommitted factor would be college counties, really, in the rest of Michigan. So places you would look, this is Isabella County up here. This is where Central Michigan University is. This is Kalamazoo County. Western Michigan is here. Let's go Broncos. Go up to Marquette. Oh, a beautiful county. Marquette is on Lake Superior. It's also the home of Northern Michigan University. And you could look right here in Houghton County. That's where Michigan Tech is. So we could look in these counties as they come in. We do have some vote in Isabella and Kalamazoo. I don't believe it's much. Yeah, Isabella is just a scattering, and Kalamazoo is also just a scattering. But, Wayne County, with that large Arab American population, and then those college counties I just looked at, that's going to tell, I think, the story here. Those would be the high watermarks probably for uncommitted in this state. And again, that question of where it ultimately lands here, and a little bit of a question there, too, of is it getting some delegates? That would be more of a symbolic thing, but that would be interesting if uncommitted is collecting delegates.
The crucial battleground state of Michigan is weighing in on the 2024 fight for the White House. Both Donald Trump and Joe Biden have won their party's primaries decisively, pushing them closer to a November rematch, but with vulnerabilities on display. Although President Biden raked in around 80% of the Democratic vote, a key voting bloc selected uncommitted on the party ballot to protest the Biden administration's support for Israel in Gaza. The U.S. president did not mention them in his victory statement. And while Trump notched a solid victory over Republican rival Nikki Haley, she still netted about a quarter of the vote, which indicates there's still a sizable group of Republicans either firmly opposed to him or yet to be convinced he's the right candidate. But the Trump camp is already looking ahead to the general election, saying that if he wins Michigan in November, he wins the whole thing.
I'm Carissa Lawson in New York with breaking political news. CBS News projects Donald Trump will win the Republican Michigan primary. This is the fifth contest win for the former president, who just this past weekend defeated Nikki Haley in her home state of South Carolina. For the Democrats, CBS News can also project President Joe Biden will win the Great Lakes state. The president's victory comes despite a recent campaign for Democratic voters to select uncommitted on the ballot in protest to his administration's response to the Israel-Hamas war. In 2020, Michigan was a key swing state for President Biden to win the White House. So the headline of the hour, CBS News projects Joe Biden will win the Democratic primary and Donald Trump will win the Republican primary in Michigan. The next contest is Super Tuesday, 1 week from tonight on March 5th, where more than 1/3 of the GOP delegates will be up for grabs across 15 states. There will be more campaign 2024 coverage on your late local news and on CBS News streaming. I'm Carissa Lawson in New York.
This hour, ABC News can project President Biden will win the Michigan primary. But taking a look right now at those results, you can see more than 17,000 Michigan voters chose to vote uncommitted instead of for Joe Biden, who received 83,000, a little more than 83,000 votes. Michigan is, of course, a hotly contested swing state and always looms large in November. On the Republican side, ABC News can project Donald Trump will win the Republican primary there in Michigan. And take a look now. We can see that Donald Trump is beating Nikki Haley by more than 40,000 points, with 65% of the vote there.
NBC News can project that former President Trump has won the Michigan presidential primary, Republican presidential primary, defeating former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley. The former president going 5 for 5 in the first races of the 2024 election season. Here's where we're at right now with this race, 65% of Trump having that. And we also have a call in the Democratic race as well. NBC News can project President Joe Biden has won the Michigan Democratic primary. The major storyline there, though, how many Democrats would vote uncommitted. Here is it right here. Let's take a moment and look at this where we have right now. With 10% of the vote in, you have 16% uncommitted, about 17,000 there voting uncommitted in this primary. Joe Biden, obviously the clear winner, the incumbent here at 78% of the vote. We have complete team coverage tonight. Mike Memoli, Shaq Brewster, and Gabe Gutierrez reporting all across the state tonight.
All right, we start tonight with a Fox News alert. It is 9 p.m. on the East Coast, 6 p.m. on the West Coast, and all the polls in Michigan are finally closed. We will continue to monitor the results throughout the evening, but former President Donald Trump has built up a massive lead of more than 30 points thus far over Nikki Haley in this Republican primary. And while Joe Biden appears well on the way to winning the Democratic primary, well, in what is an alarming sign for Team Biden, roughly 16% of voters in the result we have so far voted for the option of uncommitted. It's going to be interesting to watch tonight.
Julio, ¿qué tal? Muy buenas tardes. Pues esta noche no hay sorpresas con los ganadores en las primarias de Michigan. Por el Partido Demócrata es el presidente Joe Biden quien se lleva los 117 delegados. Importante de notar que hasta el momento más de 17,000 personas emitieron su voto de castigo o voto protesta, escribiendo en la boleta voto sin compromiso. Esto como crítica a su manejo de la guerra entre Hamas e Israel. Ahora, por el lado republicano, el ganador proyectado también sin sorpresas es el puntero del partido, el expresidente Donald Trump. Aquí lo importante será ver cuánta ventaja le sacó a la ex embajadora de la ONU, Nikki Haley, quien hasta el momento no ha ganado ni una sola primaria ni tampoco asamblea partidaria. Hoy las primarias republicanas otorgan 16 de los 55 delegados, los otros 39 se van a entregar este sábado durante una convención estatal partidaria.